Hi, I'm Jimmy. So the US government has recently announced a stimulus package that could put in everybody's pocket about $1,200 as part of a $2.2 trillion stimulus package. Now, many people need this money to survive, and for many others, it makes sense to take this cash and save it. But I've seen a few comments where people have talked about investing that cash. Now, in this video, we're looking at what possible investments we could consider making with that $1,200 stimulus check. Now, this list would and should vary based on each of our own level of risk tolerance and our current portfolio. So, to deal with that, I'm going to assume that we have no investments, and I'm going to assume that we're long-term investors. Now, I'm only going to focus on stocks, even though a properly balanced portfolio should have at least some percentage of bonds. But either way, I'm just going to focus on stocks. Okay, now, if I were a new investor, I would likely kick off my investment with a broad-based ETF, something like the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, ticker symbol VOO. So that could be a good place to start. Okay, now let's jump into some individual stocks that we could consider investing in with the $1,200 from the stimulus package, especially since many of these stocks are way down now since the stock market has been crashing, so this could be a perfect opportunity for us. Okay, first up, we have Pepsi, ticker symbol PEP. Now, I expect for a company like Pepsi to do very well over the long run. We can see that the recent collapse of Pepsi's stock price could provide us with the opportunity that we've been waiting for. Although we can likely expect for there to be a pullback in Pepsi's earnings for 2020 and possibly 2021 as well. But by the end of that, I would expect for Pepsi and all the other companies on this list for that matter to continue moving higher once again from a revenue and a profit perspective. Now, I'm going to run through a lot of these companies very quickly. And if you see any companies that you think we should do a deeper dive on, please let me know in the comments below. Okay, next up, we're looking to add 3M, ticker symbol MMM. So 3M makes a ton of necessary products that the world has come to rely on. Now, we may notice on their one-year chart that they're not quite down as much as some of the other companies as the stock market has crashed. In fact, we can see they were down more back here. If we're curious, back here, that was the day of their earnings. They missed earnings, stock tanked because of it. But either way, I expect for them to do well over the long run, and eventually I expect for their stock to head towards their old highs again. Okay, next up we have the Travelers Company, ticker symbol TRV. Now, Travelers is an insurance company, and we could see with their stock chart, well, we can see that they've really been crushed as the stock market has been crushed over the past month or so. Now, I've been a bit hesitant to add financial companies in a time period where the US is clearly leaping into a recession, maybe worse. But this portfolio is designed for long-term investors. So I think over the long run, a company like Travelers could be a good addition to this type of portfolio. And I think that this pullback in the stock certainly gives us a better stock price. And I think at this price, it makes sense. Okay, now we have two companies that I've talked about a few times, and they're two of my favorite companies, and I think they're very strong for any long-term investors. First is Disney, ticker symbol DIS, and then Microsoft, ticker symbol MSFT. So when we look at Disney's stock chart over the past year, well, we can see that Disney has really been crushed in the wake of the stock market crashing. And partially, I understand it. After all, Disney makes a lot of their money from their parks and in movie theaters, and we all know that things like that aren't really happening right now. But once again, as long-term investors, I expect for this to eventually pass and for Disney's stock price to once again thrive. And then when we switch over to Microsoft's stock chart, well, we can see that this is one of the few companies that are still higher from a year-over-year perspective. But clearly, they're way down off their recent highs. Once again, I think Microsoft is a great company. They have a ton of cash, and I expect them to do quite well over the long run. Now, Microsoft has bounced a bit off the bottom, so I'm sort of hoping that this one pulls back a bit before we get the actual stimulus checks. But either way, I'm a big fan of Microsoft as a company, and I think that even at this level, it's a decent buy. Then another company I think could be great for this portfolio, and they have a ton of cash, which I think is useful right now, is Apple, ticker symbol AAPL. When we look at their stock chart, well, we can see that Apple's price has dropped quite impressively off of their high. But once again, they're still up over the past year, which is good for current investors. So I think this is a great long-term hold. Now, another company I think is interesting for this type of portfolio is AbbVie, ticker symbol ABBV. AbbVie is a global pharmaceutical company, and we could see that with their stock chart that they've pulled back nicely over the past month, and this could provide a solid opportunity. They pay a decent dividend yield as well, so this could offer a good opportunity in multiple fronts. Okay, next up, we have a pair of companies that both do very similar things and offer some complementary benefits. First is AT&T, ticker symbol T. The second is Verizon, ticker symbol VZ. Now, when we look at the stock chart for AT&T, well, we can see that the stock has pulled back a decent amount over the past month or so. Now, one of the advantages to AT&T stock is that they have an almost 7% dividend yield. And for many investors, this is one of the key motivations for investing in this particular stock. Meanwhile, Verizon, which pays a dividend yield of slightly less than 5%, well, we can see that they too have had a decent pullback in their stock price over the past month. Now, based on the prices of the stocks in this video when I publish this video, well, we would have spent about $1,000 of the $1,200 that we could be eligible to receive. So if we're interested in a few other dividend stocks that could be a good dividend stock to add to this particular portfolio, I actually did a video called Forever Dividend Stocks, and perhaps that could be a good next video to watch. And just so we're all aware, I actually had AT&T and 3M in that list as well. Clearly, I'm a big fan of those companies. So if you're curious, there's a link right here. There's a link in the description below. And thank you so much for sticking with me all the way into the video. I really appreciate it. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.